Rapunzel. There were once a man and a woman who longed in vain for a child. The woman hoped that God was about to grant her wish. They had a small window at the back of their house, from which they could see a beautiful garden full of flowers and herbs. However, it was surrounded by a high wall, and no one dared to enter it, as it belonged to an enchantress with great power, and was feared by everyone. One day the woman was standing by the window and saw a bed with the most beautiful Rapunzel plant. She longed for it and had a great desire to eat it. This desire grew stronger every day, and as she knew she could not have any, she became pale and miserable. Her husband was worried, and he asked what aileth. His dear wife replied, if he couldn't get some of Rapunzel, which was in the garden behind their house, to eat, she would die. The man who loved her thought better than letting his wife die, so he brought her some Rapunzel himself, even if it cost him what it would. In the twilight of the evening, he climbed down over the wall into the enchantress's garden. Hastily he grabbed a handful of Rapunzel and brought it to his wife. She immediately made a salad of it and ate it with great delight. However, she liked it so much, so very much, that the next day she desired it 3 times more than before. If he was to have any peace, her husband must descend into the garden once more. Therefore he let himself down again, but when he had climbed down the wall, he was terribly afraid, for he saw the enchantress standing before him. "How dare you," she said with an angry look, "to descend into my garden and steal my Rapunzel like a thief?" "You shall suffer for it," he answered. "Let mercy take the place of justice. I only made up my mind to do it out of necessity. My wife saw your Rapunzel from the window, and felt such a longing for it that she would have died if she had not gotten some to eat." Then the enchantress allowed her anger to be soft and said, "If the case is as you say, I will allow you to take away with you as much Rapunzel as you will. Only I make one condition. You must give me the child which your wife will bring into the world. It shall be well treated, and I will care for it like a mother." The man, in his terror, consented to everything, and when the woman was brought to bed, the enchantress appeared, gave the child the name of Rapunzel, and took it away with her. Rapunzel grew up into the most beautiful child under the sun. When she was 12 years old, the enchantress shut herself into a tower that was located in a forest. There were no stairs or doors leading to the tower, but at the very top there was a small window. When the enchantress wanted to get out, she placed herself beneath the window and cried out, "Rapunzel, Rapunzel, let down your hair for me." Rapunzel had long, magnificent hair, fine as spun gold. When she heard the enchantress' voice, she unfastened her braids and wound them around one of the hooks of the window above. Then her hair fell down 20 feet, and the enchantress climbed up using it. After a year or 2, the king's son happened to ride through the forest and pass by the tower. He heard a song that was so enchanting, he stopped and listened. It was Rapunzel, who, in her solitude, spent her time letting her sweet voice echo through the tower. The king's son wanted to climb to her, and looked for a door to the tower, but none was to be found. He rode home, but the singing had so deeply touched his heart that every day he went out into the forest and listened to it. Once, when he was standing behind a tree, he saw that an enchantress had come there, and heard how she cried, "Rapunzel, Rapunzel, let down your hair." Then Rapunzel let down the braids of her hair, and the enchantress climbed up to her. "If that is the ladder by which one mounts, I will for once try my fortune. said he, and the next day, when it began to grow dark, he went to the tower and cried, "Rapunzel, Rapunzel, let down your hair." Immediately the hair fell down and the king's son climbed up. At first Rapunzel was terribly frightened when a man, such as her eyes had never yet beheld, came to her, but the king's son began to talk to her quite like a friend, and told her that his heart had been stirred so much that it had given him no rest and had forced him to see her. Then Rapunzel lost her fear. When he asked her to marry him, she saw that he was young and handsome. She thought he would love her more than the old Lady Goddel did, and she said yes. She laid her hand in his and said she would willingly go with him, but she did not know how to get down. She asked him to bring her a skein of silk each time he came, and she would weave a ladder with it. When the ladder was ready, she would descend, and he would take her on his horse. They agreed that he should come to her every evening until the time came for her to descend. The enchantress did not notice anything about this until Rapunzel told her. Rapunzel asked the enchantress how it was that she was so much heavier to draw up for her than the young king's son was for her. The enchantress cried out, "What do I hear you say? I thought I had separated you from the world, and yet you have deceived me." In her anger, she grabbed Rapunzel's beautiful tresses and wound them twice around her left hand. With her right hand, she seized a pair of scissors, and with a snap, they were cut off. The lovely braids fell to the ground, and she was so cruel that she sent poor Rapunzel into a desert where she had to live in great sorrow and misery. On the same day she cast out Rapunzel, and the enchantress, in the evening, fastened the braids of hair that she had cut off to the hook of the window. When the king's son came and called out for Rapunzel, she let the hair down, but the king's son did not find Rapunzel there. Instead, the enchantress looked at him with wicked and malicious eyes. She cried mockingly, "You thought you would find your beloved, but the beautiful bird is gone, singing no longer in the nest. The cat has caught it, and will scratch out your eyes too. Rapunzel was lost to you, and you will never see her again." The king's son was overcome with pain, and in his despair he leapt from the tower. He escaped with his life, but the thorns he fell into pierced his eyes, leaving him blind. He wandered about the forest, eating only roots and berries, and mourned over the loss of his beloved wife. After years of wandering, he came to a desert where Rapunzel and the twins, whom she had given birth to, lived in poverty. He heard a voice that seemed familiar and went towards it. When he approached, Rapunzel recognized him and wept 2 tears that wetted his eyes, restoring his sight. They returned to his kingdom, where they were joyfully welcomed. They lived happily for many years afterwards.